Russian officials say they are negotiating a deal with U.S. counterparts on efforts to release WNBA star Brittney Griner, and another jailed American, Marine veteran Paul Whelan, is also in play.
Talks are being conducted by aides to Presidents Biden and Putin. A judge sentenced Griner to 9 years in prison for drug smuggling. Moscow police say that they found vape cartridges containing cannabis oil in her luggage. Whelan is serving a 16-year sentence for spying.
Joining us now for some insight into these negotiations, Dr. David Dorondo, a history professor at Western Carolina University. Dr. Dorondo, thanks for being here with us this morning.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
We've heard a lot about these negotiations really for months now. Can you describe the high stakes that are at play and what's kind of going on behind the scenes that we may not hear about and certainly not see?
Prisoner exchanges between what was then the Soviet government, now the Russian government on the one hand, and the United States on the other, they have a long pedigree. They go back at least as far as 1962. When Francis Gary Powers, who many of your viewers will know was shot down in a U-2 spy plane over the Soviet Union in 1960, when he was released in exchange for a very, very high value a spy from the Soviet point of view, Rudolf Abel, who ran an espionage ring here in the United States and Canada. So these sorts of exchanges have a long pedigree. They're typically done behind the scenes. They're typically done without much press coverage, and they can take years to happen. I would assume this particular exchange will not take years, but one has to wait and see.
And I know, like you said, this is happening, a world apart. I imagine you've got Putin, you've got Biden, you've got NATO, you got all these people that are important at a big table. I know that's not how it's going, but that's how I'm envisioning these negotiations going back and forth, right? So we want Whelan, we want Brittney Griner to come back to America. And Russia is saying, hey, we want this Russian arms dealer, a convicted murderer. How do we go back and forth and justify what we want and what they want?
Well, the NSC spokesman, Admiral Kirby, said the other day that it's always a matter of balancing the interests of the United States versus the moral pressure, especially when those who are arrested on the Soviet or Russian side are in fact not spies or anything similar to being spies. In the case of Ms. Griner and Mr. Whelan, they are, from an American legal perspective, simply wrongfully detained and unfairly detained. Their innocence caught up in a sort of neo-Cold War kind of atmosphere. They're pawns, in effect. But it has to be done carefully. It has to be done off the record in many cases. It's interesting to note, however, that there are some other possibilities for Russians to be exchanged. There are a number of hackers who are in U.S. custody, most of them for financial crimes and so on. And then, of course, there's a further complication with a former FSB, that is to say, Russian security agent in Germany, who carried out the murder of a Chechen freedom fighter, a Chechen guerrilla from the Russian point of view, in broad daylight in Berlin in 2019. And the Russian government is evidently asking him to be included as well, which adds a further complication since that man is not in U.S. custody. He's in German custody.
What does the backdrop of the Ukrainian war do to these negotiations, if anything?
There is a connection. Having the United States forced to negotiate with Vladimir Putin allows him to be able to continue to paint himself domestically in Russia as a leader to be taken seriously, of course, by the United States. Adding the German angle to the negotiations also puts pressure on the German government, which in various ways is beholden to Russia from the point of view of energy security. So it remains to be seen how this deal is going to work itself out. I certainly presume that the U.S. government is speaking also quietly to the German government about whether or not the former FSB agent can be included in this particular exchange.
And I can just only imagine the Whelan family, the Griner family, is sitting here going, please, U.S., please, President Biden, don't tick off you know, the Russians, because we want this negotiation to happen. If there is a prisoner swap, we want them to be able to come home safely. And so when you do have that war going on with Ukraine, it's like, don't do anything to make them upset. Wait till this exchange is over before you do anything else.
That's right. The factor that really upset the Russian government publicly in recent weeks was the fact that so much public attention was being paid to this matter by President Biden and sort of putting public pressure on the Russian government. There was not going to be any kind of negotiation at all from a Russian perspective until Ms. Griner was convicted in a Russian court, which she has now been. And the negotiations, which are currently underway, have in fact been confirmed by the Soviet Foreign Ministry and the Soviet Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, yesterday. So these negotiations are active. I do not know at what stage they happen to be at the moment. And again, it remains to be seen how complicated this deal is going to be if, in fact, the FSB agent who carried out the murder in 2019 in Germany is to be included.
Well, it seems like nothing has been smooth or easy when it comes to talking or working with the Russians as of late. As for these families, they've said in recent days they're optimistic, but until their loved ones are on a plane and the deal is done, they don't want to get too hopeful.
That's absolutely right. It makes eminent sense for these families not to allow their hopes to become too high until, in fact, their loved ones are on a plane headed home.
Dr. Dorondo, if I can switch gears a little bit while we have you, we like to pick your historical, intelligent brain and talk about other subjects. We've been watching this FBI raid, this FBI search on former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate down in Florida. Yesterday, the Washington Post was saying that there were these legal documents, possible nuclear documents that they're wanting to focus on. Help us understand the importance that goes into these secret classified documents and the protection that goes into something that could have nuclear information on it.
We have to wait to see what is revealed, both in the search warrant and in the inventory list of the items which were taken from Mar-a-Lago by the FBI. I think more interestingly, it remains to be seen what's in the affidavit upon which the federal magistrate had to rule in order to issue the warrant in the first place. When this story broke yesterday, it was stunning to me. These nuclear secrets, I'm doing some research actually at the moment on extended nuclear deterrence in NATO, and it was stunning to me that this story was reported by the Washington Post. If it is borne out that there are documents related to American nuclear weapon systems of our allies, or nuclear weapon systems of Russia or China or anyone else, these sorts of documents are the sort of crown jewels of state secrets for any nuclear power. Of course, these documents could also be related to hypersonic weapons research, which can be nuclear platforms and so on. We have to wait and see what the documents are, if in fact we ever see what they are. Some of them are said to be so secret that they can't be described in the press because that would violate the security protocols. So if in fact these are documents dealing with, especially with American nuclear systems, this is extraordinarily serious, if in fact they are what the Washington Post suggests they might be.
Well, we will certainly have to wait and see. Dr. David Dorondo, we appreciate your insight and your expertise when it comes to both of these topics. A professor at Western Carolina University. Thanks for joining us this morning. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.